Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel James II, the host of the Culture Connect, the podcast for the South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs. You might ask, how did this podcast get started? Well, with a challenge from our executive director, Dr. Dolores DaCosta, we wanted to highlight the great minority voices across the state of South Carolina. You're going to hear from businessmen and women, farmers, HBCU presidents, and diverse voices across South Carolina that are doing the work every day to make our state more equitable and better for all citizens. Be sure that you subscribe and so that you don't miss the notifications for the next episode of the Culture Connect on all digital platforms. Let's tune into the episode. We have a very special guest in the studio today. He's CMA's recipient of the 2021 Shining Star Award. And of course, he's the president of Denmark Technical College here in Denmark, South Carolina. We have Dr. Willie Todd Jr. Say hello to the people, Dr.
Hello,
Todd.
everybody. How are you doing today? This is an awesome opportunity. I'm excited.
Now, Dr. Todd, there is not a picture on the internet I've seen of you where you do not have a bow tie on. Where did this start from? Bow tie and handkerchief. So
that's a good question right there. So I have been wearing bow ties since I was in high school.
Okay.
I was the kid that in high school, I actually wore suits to school most of the time. And my joke is, if you're over age 4, you're too old for your bow tie to be a clip-on. Like when you're 4, you're like, oh, that's cute. When you're over age 4, you need to learn how to tie a bow tie. And so then in high school, I had on clip-ons because I didn't know any better. But I don't know. It was unique. I liked it. It was my personal style. And I just stuck with them. I don't think I've worn a necktie probably since the 90s.
You have not worn a necktie since the 90s?
I have not worn a necktie. And in fact, I took all of my neckties and had a person turn them into bow ties.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how to tie a necktie into a bow tie?
I do, but I'll be honest, and no offense to anybody who does this, I think it looks unattractive. I think it's entirely too big. So they actually took my neckties, cut the neckties open, put them with a bow tie pattern, and made them into bow ties. Okay. I don't like the big necktie that turned into this big fat bow tie. But if you do that, that's awesome. I'm sure it looks amazing on you, just not on me.
That's all right. That's good.
Yes, sir. Look at you breaking the ice, brother. I like that.
Listen, Dr. Todd, just to talk about your presidency, because we're sitting in your office right now, and I know that you became Denmark's president January 6, 2020. January 6 has an entirely new meaning now, that date. And then you started on January 13th of that same year. When you walked in to your school, this school, on the first day, did you know what you were walking into and the vastness, I guess, of the responsibility or undertaking that Denmark Tech would be?
So I did not. In fact, I started at Denmark Tech in July 29th of 2019.
Oh, wow.
And I came here as Vice President for Academic Affairs and Student Affairs. Okay. I do believe in divine intervention. I believe that sometimes God has a destiny for us, and what God's plan is and our plan, they're not always the same. Okay. And so a couple of people said, hey, you should consider being the president. I was like, oh, no. That's not why I came here. That's not what I'm doing. And so when I took over on January 13th, my initial joke was, every time I opened the door, something else would fall out. I'm like, okay, Jesus, who did I make mad? Okay, right. I've done something. And so then it got to a point that when I open the door, I still open it slowly. And maybe a little something might peer out, but it doesn't fall out. But no, for me, I knew that I wanted to come to an HBCU. I have spent my whole 28-year career intentionally at HBCUs. I've been at several HBCUs, and you may have questions later, so I'll hold those. But what I will say, I do believe that God puts us where we're supposed to be, and my background, professional and educational backgrounds, directly align with the challenges that I saw. And he put me with a team of people here that's been able to transform us in ways that if you weren't a believer before, you would have to be a believer. Whether you say God, Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah, you know that there was a higher power involved, because what we're doing is we're transforming lives. And this institution has been here since 1947, and this is our 75th anniversary. So my hope is that 75 years later, they'll be talking about how 2020 was the year that Denmark Tech turned the corner and went in, a brave new direction.
Wow. Well, congratulations on 75 years.
Thank you, sir.
That is a feat. Talk about some of those challenges that you
So when I walked in the door at Denmark Tech, and this is as a vice president, we had 2 reports that were due to SAC-COC. That's the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges, and that's our accreditor. And we hadn't even started on them. We had some financial challenges. We had enrollment challenges. And the school had literally just come off of the state having recommended it for closing. And all of the previous employees, some of them still here. There are people who fought with legislators who really worked to save this school. People like Congressman Clyburn, people like Jerry Govan, and many, many others. I don't want to start calling names because I'll leave people out, but there were so many people who fought for this institution to be saved. So when I got here, we immediately were writing reports to go to SAC-COC, our accreditor. We were immediately trying to address enrollment challenges. And even more than that, we were trying to address the rumor mill, because what people don't realize, when Denmark Tech was having accreditation issues, it was never related to academics. It was related to finances. So it was never about the quality of our academic program and our instruction. That was never in question. But all people knew was, wait a minute, will my degree count? And it was nothing like that, never even got to that point. And so we had those challenges. And I think for us, it was also about going out, rebranding, rebuilding in the community. But for me, I became president in January 2020. And then in March 2020, a global pandemic sets in. So I don't care how long you had been a president. I think we were all flying the plane and building it at the same time, and sometimes putting duct tape on the plane to make sure it still stayed up. But it proved very successful for us.
I heard you on a panel recently, and you were talking about rural areas, because Denmark is in the rural South Carolina. And it made me wonder, about students. Let's say, I'm a rural student from a rural area.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about just going to a 4-year college because that's what people told me I should do, etc. But because and I might not even know what my interests are, determine what degree program and those sorts of things. Tell us why, you might offer Denmark Tech to them as an option.
So there are so many reasons I would offer Denmark Technical College as an offer. The first one is affordability. So many of our students are going to 4-year colleges. Like you said, they know they want to go to school. They know they want to be better. They know they want to be greater, but oftentimes they don't know what they want to do. And sometimes our high school counselors, unfortunately, can do students a disservice, because they're not only trying to discourage students from going to 2-year colleges, a lot of times they're even trying to discourage students from going to HBCUs. But at a school like Denmark Technical College, you're going to come, you're going to get small classroom sizes, you're going to have less debt. We have our graduation rates and retention rates are greatly increasing. We have an 87% placement rate. That means that our graduates are going into the field, not just into the field, but in fields for which they have studied. We have students that are coming here, and in a 16-week program or a 1-year program, they're making $50,000, $60,000 and more, and they only had 1 year of being in school. And if you're here in South Carolina, we're for everybody. We offer online programs, etc. But if you're here in South Carolina, our governor has done a really good thing with increasing workforce scholarships. In fact, just last week, he announced an additional $25 million that's going into workforce scholarship for our technical colleges. So if you choose to come to Denmark Technical College, there's a strong possibility you're not going to come out of pocket at all, and an even stronger possibility that you're going to leave here going into a field for which you have chosen, and you're going to have a job, and you're going to be making a lot of money, and you're not going to owe a lot of debt, because our programs are much shorter.
Okay. Can you reiterate some of those fields?
Oh, yes. So for us, we offer associate degree programs in arts. We offer associate degree programs in science. But then my mantra has been putting the tech back in Denmark Tech. So we have a line worker program that we just started this past spring. Line workers can earn anywhere up to a 6-figure salary within a few years once they become a journey line person. We also have a CDL program. We have culinary arts. We have cybersecurity. We have a nursing program here. We have a strong welding welding program here. We have so many engineering programs, other programs here that if you're interested in getting into industry, and right now we have so many things going on with our cybersecurity program that is awesome. We're working with Cyber Fusion and Cisco, and they're taking 25 of our students. They just did a cohort, giving them $20,000 scholarships for a 1-year program. And these people are going to be guaranteed to be making some really nice money. And we're starting our second cohort of that in October. And you don't have to live in Denmark to do this. In fact, this is a totally online program, so you could be anywhere in the country, potentially the world, to do this program.
That's really good. And I think that that's one advantage, I feel like, of your program is that it is so accessible for a lot of people, a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. And that really evens the playing field, I feel like, for people to get the best of their passion and possibly their pay as well.
Oh, yes. And we're getting, our technical college system is finding that we're getting so many students now who have bachelor's degrees who are coming back into a technical college because they realize the amount of money they could make. I won't even talk about our nursing students. Our nursing students, the jobs they're getting, our CDL students, those students are everybody who finished our cohort. They've already gotten jobs. Our EMT program, when we did our last ceremony for our EMT programs, we had emergency vehicles parked outside because they had already gotten jobs and hadn't even gotten their certifications yet, their official certificates, and they had already gotten jobs. So our students are getting into industry quicker.
That's so good. And I think that that's really something that we definitely value. We don't know about the status of student loan debt on a national scale.
It's real, trust
It's
me.
real. And I think just putting your faith in it being canceled, the better faith might be placed, or energy might be placed towards just maybe not accruing as little as possible to begin with.
That's right.
Now, speaking of being from anywhere, you're not originally from South Carolina. You're from DeKalb County, right?
So I am a Georgia boy. In Georgia, we colloquially say I'm a DSGB. That's a down south Georgia boy. I was born in a small town in Georgia, West Point, Georgia, but I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, Decatur, Georgia, went to high school there, et cetera, et cetera. And so I really consider my home to be Atlanta because that's where from an early age I spent most of my life.
Okay. How'd you come to South Carolina now?
So I came to South Carolina. Don't be perplexed. I came to South Carolina because as I was looking for my next HBCU home, I found the Denmark Technical College. And so that's how I ended up here in South Carolina.
Okay, that's really good.
Specifically for Denmark Tech.
Specifically for Denmark Tech.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Now, you've had a 26 journey, career in higher education, or maybe even more years. What do you foresee of coming from this? Or I don't know, do you see yourself for the next 20 years at Denmark Tech, or I don't know?
Okay. Yeah. I say that my steps are ordered. I believe in divine intervention. I believe whatever God has planned for me is for me. I've spent most of my career at 4-year HBCUs, and I'll be honest, at some point in my career, I know I will be returning to a 4-year HBCU. But right now, I'm just enjoying this blessing that I have been given, the responsibility to provide high quality education and technical programs here for our students in South Carolina, especially rural South Carolina. So for me, I do not see myself retiring anytime soon. I ideally see myself spending the rest of my career at HBCUs, but I'll be honest, I said this to you earlier, our plan and God's plan are not always the same. And so wherever God leads me is where I shall go. And right now God is saying, stay here, my child, do what you need to do. We've received so many blessings here at Denmark Tech. I love my students. I love the faculty and staff that we work with. And I love the community here because our community rallies around Denmark Tech. And I'm so appreciative of that. Even our state partners like the South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs and so many others who've come in to support all citizens, but especially those of us in rural communities.
Speaking of the commission, I remember talking to Dr. DaCosta in the first episode of the show, and she talked a lot about being a lifelong learner. And she talked about some of her mentors and the people that really poured into her life. And she said, I'm a lifelong learner as well as teacher. You're obviously, like you just said, you're a lifelong educator. So you're in it for the long run, or have been in it for the long run. But I sort of want to know, who would you point to as your teachers, Dr. Todd? I mean, you got Mary McLeod Bethune on the wall. You got Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall. Who are your teachers, I guess?
So I look at my teachers being so many different people. I strongly believe in the support that I received from all of my ancestors. Some of the smartest people I met in my life never even finished grade school, but they gave me some of the lessons that I'll never forget. My maternal and paternal grandparents were strong forces in my life. But then I also was that child as a first generation college student who, when I went to college, there was so many people who just took me aside and just poured into me. One couple in particular, and they both now have transitioned, is Dr. C.W. and Velma Grant. Dr. Grant was a person, his philosophy used to be, if it is to be, it's up to me. And Dr. Grant was small in stature, but he was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. He and his wife used to pull up on our campus. He drove a big white Mercedes S-Class. She drove a white E-Class. And for us, they were just the epitome of Black excellence. I was an English major. She was an English professor. And she used to say, Mr. Todd, I want you to be excellent. And I wanted to be excellent. And I look at individuals like those. I look at my parents. I tell people my parents worked too hard for me not to be great. But I also just live and learn from so many, from being in the Black church, people who along my life would just say, I see something in you. People who, I was that kid who was class president in high school, senior class president, and all those different things, 2-time student body president. There were just so many people who poured into me. So I can't just pick one person. But then when you look at my wall, you do see, Madam C.J. Walker, you see Thurgood Marshall, you see Malcolm X, but then there's so many more as a literary person, as a person who's undergraduate and master and PhD, first masters and PhD are all in English. There are so many people who have written words that have empowered me throughout my life. And I credit all of those people. I stand on the shoulders. I am my ancestors' wildest dream. I am my ancestors who sharecropped in Georgia, their wildest dream to think that they would one day have an offspring who would be meeting with the governor, who would be meeting with major lawmakers, who would be considered a major influence in any field, but especially in higher education. And I'm so thankful for that. And I never take that for granted. I know that there are a lot of people who look like me who didn't get the opportunities that I have. So every day I wake up, Socrates has a quote that says, an unexamined life is not worth living. So every night, I might forget one or two, but I typically try to think back through my day and see, how did I do today? And some days I'm like, I'm really, really happy about how today went. Some days I'm like, you know what? Today I could have done things differently, but I'm so thankful the next day and blessed when I wake up and I can do it all over again. So I'm privileged. I stand on the shoulders of so many greats. I stand on the shoulders of people who've been at this institution. Principal Dawkins, who is considered one of our founders. Dr. Joanne Boyd Scotland, who was a 2-time serving president, our only woman permanent president, and she did some awesome things to move this institution forward. And I just stand on all their shoulders.
It sounds like faithfulness and gratitude has brought you a long way.
To whom much is given, much is required. And so much has been given to me. And I just pray that I can live up to all the things that have been given to me.
That's beautiful. Now, English, that's a lot of writing and that's a lot of reading.
Oh, yes.
Now, I also, and tell me if I'm wrong, I heard that you're a playwright.
Yes.
Is that very true?
That is exceptionally true.
So you're not on writing for Broadway right now?
So once upon a time, when I was at Clark Atlanta University, I wrote and produced plays annually. They were typically started with the moniker Black Voices, and then I would have colon something. Even Jennifer Holliday, who has been, most people know her from Dreamgirls, and I'm telling you, she's been in one of my plays. And so I've had plays produced at the National Black Theater Festival, that have been selected among plays to go. And each year I would do plays at Clark Atlanta University and donate all the proceeds back to the university to scholarships. And so I did that for about 15 years. And then when I got more involved into administration, it's just that my time just won't allow me to do it. I still love playwriting. I still love plays. I dibble and dabble every now and then, but I'm that person that my bachelor's is in English from Albany State. I have a master's in English education from Albany State. I then got my PhD in English from Georgia State. Then I went back and got a second master's degree after my PhD in higher education administration with a concentration in student affairs administration from Regent University. And I've been telling somebody else, I feel like I need to go back to school and do something in my spare time, whenever that is. And so I love learning. But I love writing. I write all the time. I've helped students with speeches. Writing is still what I love, what I enjoy, and I'll always be a lifelong learner and writer.
And that's beautiful. And I think that it shows the depth at which you learn also is the magnitude, I feel like, with which you're able to then lead other people. We talked about that with Dr. DaCosta, just how a leader is a learner.
Oh, yes.
And that's really powerful lesson. Now, these degrees, did you ever get burnout? I guess because student burnout is a real thing, and like mental health is a real thing too. So you ever got burnout?
I definitely got burnout. For me, I think it was always because I knew that as anybody, but especially as a young African-American male at the time, that I knew that poverty for me was not an option. And I knew that the only way I was going to be guaranteed some semblance of success, I was not born into money, is that I was going to have to do it through education. And so whenever it got hard for me, I just thought about people who wanted to go to school and were told they couldn't go to school. I thought about people like Frederick Douglass, who had to trick little white boys into teaching him how to read because it was against the law to learn how to read. And I just thought about all those people who, gave up everything they had to segregate, to integrate schools. And so was I burnt out? Oh, yes, often. But I tried to keep my mind on the goal and on the prize. And I'll be honest, when I worked on the second master's after the PhD, and I was working in administration as a vice provost, it got to a point that I'm like, you know what, I might have to leave this program alone. I already have a doctorate. What am I doing working on another master's? But then I thought to myself, what message would I be giving to my students? What message would I be giving to my employees? What message would I be giving to even family members? And I trudged on and finished it. And I'm so thankful I did.
I tell you, getting things, my generation, I've heard this statement a lot. They got it out the mud or something like that. Meaning they got it really, like, in terms of all their success, really from the level, the ground up. And I feel like that's really what your story, it tells me that this has been a long journey and a long process. Now, I see this check behind you from the James E. Clyburn Endowment. Is there a story behind that?
So, yes, the story is that Congressman James Clyburn, and this was just received yesterday, as a matter of fact, Congressman James Clyburn, there are these 8 pillars of success that they've started. He started a memorial brunch in memory of his wife, Dr. Emily England Clyburn, and her commitment to education. So they invited all 8 HBCUs in the state of South Carolina. There was a brunch yesterday, and they're going to annually give $10,000 in scholarships to each of us. And I thought that was so important because right now they're doing it equally, but I heard the congressman say the first day they're also going to look at it from an equitable standpoint as well, because when we look at schools, when we look at our community, Denmark Tech serves 3 of the most rural communities in rural South Carolina. And so many of our students, the ones that come from this community, oftentimes will come from socially and economically deprived backgrounds. Now, we have students from Georgia, Florida, New York, Jersey, Kansas, Missouri, California, Alabama, Florida. We have students from all around. But that check is really exciting to us because it's furthering showing the congressman and his wife, his late wife's commitment, not only to education and higher education, but especially to those of us at HBCUs. And he is extremely dedicated to HBCUs and our missions.
Absolutely. From my understanding, Representative Clyburn, he's a product of a HBCU as well.
Yes.
Yes. I can understand the commitment to that. Now, there are a lot of other technical colleges, HBCU technical colleges in South Carolina. You're the first HBCU president we've had on the show. I've noticed on the panel, y'all have like a healthy sort of competition going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is that true?
It's like fraternities and sororities. Fraternities and sororities, we laugh and we joke against each other, but at the end of the day, we support each other. My brothers and sister presidents in the state of South Carolina, I love them all. We all have great relationships. And at the end of the day, we all know we provide high quality education. But one thing that's unique, we're the only technical college, HBCU, in the state of South Carolina.
Okay.
And so for us, that means that many of them or all of them are offering 4-year and other degrees. We're the only place in South Carolina as an HBCU that you can come and get a technical college education. And so one person said to me, Dr. Todd, I think it's good you at a 2-year college because some kids aren't smart enough to go to a 4-year college. I said, that's the least smart thing I've ever heard. And another way of saying that would be the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I said, some people are smart enough to realize it doesn't take a 4-year degree to do what they want to do in life. So you could go to any of our 8 HBCUs and you're going to have an awesome, remarkable opportunity. But if you come to our HBCU, within a year to 2 years, you're going to be making as much money, if not more, than you can having spent 4 years. And since 6 of our 8 HBCUs are private, only 2 of us are state, that means that at a state institution, it's going to be a lot less expensive. So if you're saying, I want to get into industry, I want to make money, I want to choose a career where I'm going to make a major impact, and I don't want to take forever doing this. I'm not trying to stay in school 4 or 5 years and graduate and possibly still don't know where I'm going to be working. I can tell you we have an 87% placement rate. I love all our HBCUs and they're awesome, but we're unique. And any of them would tell you, yeah, Denmark Tech is unique.
Okay, that's good.
That's right. Nobody can do what we're doing, and they're typically all doing a similar thing.
It's not a pitch though. It's just you just sharing information.
That's a fact.
Okay, that's a fact. That's good.
That's a fact.
It's a good. And I think that should be provocative for so many young people out there, and especially high schoolers. Those are the main audience I'm really thinking about. Do y'all have a relationship with doing dual enrollment?
We do.
Okay.
We have a very robust relationship with dual enrollment. Okay. We work with 8 high schools in our area. And even right now today, we're putting computer labs in every high school that we work with because we want to make sure we're providing the same quality of service for our students at our dual enrolled students or our joint enrolled students as we are for our regular students. So they're stopping by today. They're picking up enough computers to outfit an entire lab. And that's what we're doing with all of them. But we have students who are graduating from high school, and when they're graduating from high school, they're also graduating with an associate's degree. So then when they graduate high school, they're starting the next phase of their life as a junior in college. Can you imagine? We have people graduate. So they're finishing 2 years after they finish high school, they're getting bachelor's degrees because they left high school with a 2-year degree already.
There's so many great.
And the other part is our dual enrollment students don't pay anything. We pay all of it. They don't have to pay anything out of pocket.
Okay. That's really good. And
that's amazing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And there's so many opportunities to be had at Denmark Tech. Do you ever feel, though, the pressure because, sometimes I'm sure you felt like you had to, or maybe you didn't, I don't know, you could tell me, but it seems like you had to come in and sort of save the day. And do you ever feel that pressure?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think my brothers and sister president will all agree. Sometimes we're doing a thankless job. We're working hard. We're coming into spaces where we know we have some awesome faculty and awesome students and awesome alumni. But it's a very critical position to be in. You're consistently and constantly going to be judged. And I'll use here, we just finished doing an entire residence hall. And then somebody said, well, what about that residence hall? Well, what about all your residence halls had challenges when I got here? Now only half of one has challenges. And so the thing for us is, I think what we all do is there is a weight, but I knew what I was signing up for when I came here. But I look at it as a weight, almost like he's not heavy because he's my brother or he's my sister. And I say that in the sense that the intrinsic rewards, knowing the differences that I make, having a student who graduated a year ago and came back to graduation to see a friend, and he came up to me, he said, Dr. Todd, when you came here, you said you were gonna make some changes. He said, wow, I see the changes that you made. When we look at the status of our roads on this campus, But knowing that late September, early October, in a collaborative project with our county, we're getting ready to get all roads, crosswalks, sidewalks redone on this campus. So this campus will look majorly different than what it looks like now. And so there is a challenge, there is a weight. And oftentimes there's not a lot of appreciation for what we do, but we do it, one, because we know that we have the professional and educational backgrounds to do it. We do it because we know we're making a difference for so many young people. And in our cases, oftentimes, you're not just making a difference in that person's life, you're making a difference in that family's life. We had a family that came, our new students arrived on Saturday, and we had a family that came, they had Denmark Tech mother, Denmark Tech shirts, Denmark Tech mother, sister, cousin, friend, all these shirts. Everybody had got these shirts made because they were celebrating the victory and success of their child coming here to enroll in school. And so we know we're making a difference. Is it heavy? Is that a heavy crown sometimes? It is. But the other part is, too, we have such a strong relationship, the other presidents, that, we call each other sometimes, maybe for advice, sometimes for a positive word. And when I see the other presidents doing something great, if you look at any of our social media pages, you're typically going to see all of us saying, oh, great job, way to go, because we're so happy for everybody when it's happening. I see you yawning. Let me, he's like, did he say that? I did. So,
oh my God.
Yes, sir. That's all right. Don't try to block it out either. Don't cut it. Keep it in there, brother. Keep it in there. That's good for me to know. Keep going.
It's gonna be a blooper. I promise you.
That's all right.
Listen,
that's all right. That's good.
Listen,
Those make the best interviews.
You talked about being a thankless job. We just want to say thank you, Dr. Todd, for all the great things that you've done for South Carolina. Listen, what can we look forward to, I guess, coming out of Denmark Tech? And even more importantly, how can people support the work that's going on here?
So there are two things. Well, as I said before, my mantra is putting the tech back in Denmark Tech. And so we've been trying to add a lot of tech programs. We're right now in the process of developing a mortuary science program here at the college. We're looking at nuclear fundamentals program that we have here at the college. We're expanding our cybersecurity program, and there are going to be some major construction changes going on with cybersecurity here. We're also looking at how we can infuse technology into every program that we have. So if you're in an English class, talk about what you can do in English. You could do electronic writing and publishing. You could do blogging. There are so many other things that you can do, and we want to make sure every course we offer has a technical slant to it, because if you're not using technology today, then you're behind the scenes. How people could support us, there are some easy ways. One is send us students. We need to stop sending all of our students to four-year institutions, because, to be honest, oftentimes they don't even know why they're going there. When I was at 4 years, so many times I would run into juniors and they would say to me, you know what, Dr. Todd, I don't even want to major in this, but I'm a junior now, so I'm just going to stay, because if I change my major, it'll be too long. Or if you look at the number of students who change majors, when I was at one institution in Atlanta, I had a student, by the time he was a sophomore, he had changed majors 6 times. That means that we're not doing something right, trying to let people know what to major in. And then you have students like me who chose English only because I was good in English in high school, didn't necessarily know what I was going to do with it. And because I was so headstrong and people would say, he knows what he wants to do, I just stayed with English. I don't know if that was what I needed to major in to do what I needed to do, but send us students. We would love to have your students. And then the other thing is donate to us. You can go online to Denmark Tech, tech.edu. We would love any donations that you have. I take a line from Coming to America. We appreciate the kind that jingles, but we prefer the kind that folds. But we appreciate anything that you can do to help and provide internship opportunities for our students, hire our students. And if you think that you have some great information to come and share with our students, let me know. We'd love to invite you. We're always trying to expose them. Exposure is the key, especially when you're in a rural community. And those are things that will help us continue to be greater, because we're already great, but we're always working to be greater. Those are the things that would help us continue putting the tech back in Denmark Tech.
You always say that, because I was going to bring up that phrase, putting the Denmark back in Denmark Tech.
Putting the tech back
in Denmark Tech. Back in Denmark Tech. And just technology in general. Some people fear, though, that like even these, with the rapid, I guess, growth of technology, that it actually will replace people. Like, How do you handle that?
So,
I guess.
so I'll say this right now. I think we're not a long way from that because there's self-parking vehicles, et cetera. But I would say my putting the tech back in Denmark Tech has to do with the fact that I try not to judge my predecessors because I believe they all made the decisions that they felt were best for the college at that particular time. But what I do know is at some point, for some reason, we decided to abandon some of our technical programs and we were focusing more on becoming a transfer program to four-year colleges. But we're a tech school. And what we found, and that's when our enrollment started to dwindle, what we found is the more tech programs we put back, when we put our CDL program has had cohorts filled. When we have our CNA program, when we have our EMT program, our welding programs, when we have just started this line worker program, so many African Americans don't know about line workers, and African Americans and women are so underrepresented in the field. In cybersecurity, we have less than 2% of African Americans and women who are involved in this field, but that's such a high money-making field. So there are people who I think are afraid of technology, but technology not only is it the future, it's the present. And if you are not embracing technology, I think COVID has caused the entire world to embrace technology in a way that they didn't. Even grandmamas are talking about now, you're going to Zoom me or you're going to FaceTime me, because they've learned things that they didn't know. But what we realized that if we don't embrace technology, if we don't teach our students technology, and this is all of our schools, but especially our HBCUs, then we will be doing them a disservice because contemporary age students who are coming to us 17, 18 years old, they've had tablets in their hands since they were babies. So even if you come into a classroom and you're not using a technological approach beyond simply a PowerPoint, you're already behind the times because they're so advanced. And so we're having to make sure that we keep our faculty up to date so that they're able to bring those exciting changes into the classroom to make learning fun. Learning should always be fun.
I think that's very true. And I think that it really addresses the fact that we're going to have to, I guess, teachers too and professors are going to have to be a lot more innovative and I guess keep up with the curve in which technology is taking us. Dr. Todd, what do you want your legacy to be at Denmark Tech? What impression do you want to leave on this community that you've already made an impact on?
I think I want my legacy to be one of a person who is altruistic, which is the unselfish concern for the welfare of others, one who embraced and embodied and personified excellence, because they know I'm always challenging, but I believe that when we know better, we should do better. And I believe that we deserve, they hear me say a lot, if you wouldn't feed it to your children, don't feed it to our students. If you didn't want your children to live in it, don't have our students living in it. If you wouldn't want your children to sit in this class, then don't you do it. Don't make our classrooms boring. I want my name to be synonymous with excellence. I want my legacy to be one of excellence. I want it to be one of Christian servitude. I want it to be one that when I leave this institution, that people will know that it's better because I've been here, and the influence, because a president is only one person. If he or she talks about everything they've done, then they're missing the mark. It's the team, it's the people, it's the relationships, it's the community, it's the organizations like the Commission for Minority Affairs and so many others. There are so many legislators. I've seen people who voted to close this school now come and embrace this school. For 4 years ago, for the State Technical College to say we're voting to close Denmark Tech, and then for 2 months ago, that same board to vote me as president and CEO of all of the presidents in the state of South Carolina speaks volumes to the work that we've done here. So I hope that my legacy is that we will leave here and that there will be more focus on technology, more focus on academic excellence, that there will be another academic health sciences building on this campus, and that our enrollment will continue to prosper, and that people will understand that a technical college education is not only a good option, it's a great first option, because when you look at the opportunities in the technical field, I think many of our parents are doing their children a disservice if they don't explore technical college education before they spend all this money sending their children to a four-year college. And if you look at many of our four-year college graduation rates, they could talk about everything else. Talk about the numbers. Talk about how many of your students are getting placed and what's the graduation rate. And that's gonna shut everything else down. Ask how many schools can say they have an 87% placement rate, that their students are graduating and going into industry in the field for which they have studied. People say, well, I majored in this, but this is what I'm working in. Our students major in this and they're working in their field.
You definitely know your numbers, and you're showing great outcomes, I think, already through your leadership. I want to just, ask you, do you want to shout out your team? Because you talked about this work requires a team. Who's your team?
So our team is, our Executive Vice President for Administration and Innovation is Dr. A. Clifton Miles, who is a North Carolina A&T graduate. We always support our HBCUs. Our Vice President for Student Affairs is Dr. Lamar J. White, who is a Clark Atlanta University graduate and a Howard University graduate. Our Vice President for Academic Affairs is Ms. Tia Wright Richards. She's a University of South Carolina graduate. We love our PWIs too. And then our Vice President for Business and Finance is Mr. Rashard Rogers, and he is both a Clemson and a USC graduate. So he went to both places. But it's that team, but then it's also so many persons who are not part of my executive leadership team, but who make a major difference on the work we do here. The lady that you met at the front, the assistant at the front of the office, her name is Miss Betty Dowling. Miss Dowling graduated from Denmark Tech. She's been here 48 years. Graduated from Denmark Tech. Left here, went to Voorhees College next door, now University, and still is doing amazing things, still giving back. Our national alumni president, Mr. James Bowden. Mr. James Bowden was the first Black executive with Duke Energy. And so there are so many people who are a team. Our area commission chairman, Mr. Kevin Witt. I could go on and on, but those are many of the people. But then it's our community, our church family, our legislators. A lot of people come out and support us, and I'm so thankful for all of that, because we wouldn't be who we are without them. And if I didn't say this, I'll probably get beat up. Our South Carolina Area Trade School alumni. When we were first founded, we were South Carolina Area Trade School for Negroes. And so our SCATS alumni, I appreciate them because they go hard for Denmark Tech, and we love them so much.
That is a beautiful team. I did meet Miss Betty on my way in. She's a sweet lady.
Oh, she is. And she loves me to say, even though she's been here 48 years, she started when she was very young.
Okay, that's very good. That's very good. Any closing thoughts that you have, Dr. Todd?
My closing thought is, I thank you for taking time out to put a spotlight on our HBCUs. I'm so excited now that in the 80s, Bill Cosby did A Different World. Mm-hmm. And when A Different World came out, many people started looking at HBCUs in a way that they had not looked at HBCUs before. But when you look at so many of the great individuals that are African Americans in our community, so many of them were educated at HBCUs. We're returning, but I want us to return quicker to a point where people don't look at our schools as second choices, that they realize that historically and consistently, we have provided high quality education to all persons, but especially African Americans. That I want them to know that when you're looking for a college, when your counselor says, oh, no, I don't think you should go to an HBCU, you should stop talking to that counselor because he or she is not informed. You need to look at all of our HBCUs throughout the country, but here in South Carolina, whether you're in Columbia, we have 2 in Columbia, we have 2 in Orangeburg, we have 2 in Denmark, we have 1 in Sumter, and then we also have Clinton. We have 8 in this state. Look at our 8 HBCUs, because you're going to have a family environment, a quality education, and a lifelong affiliation that will be like none other. If the average person who graduated from a non-HBCU were to be honest, they envy the type of affiliation that HBCU grads have and the love they have for their institution. And it's because the love we poured into them while they were here. We welcome you. Come join us. We would love to have you. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it, and I'm humbled by the opportunity just to share our story. We're at Denmark Tech, where we're putting the tech back in Denmark Tech, and where great things are always happening.
Of course. Dr. Todd, the last question, actually, I have on a bow tie too today. So can we get a picture before I leave?
Oh, yes, sir, brother.
All right.
We'll get a picture. The only thing I would have to say to you, and I said it to you jokingly, you have to know you're never supposed to outdress the president. You came in here casket sharp today, brother. So,
I appreciate it.
So for any other presidents, if you're going to put on a bow tie, y'all better come ready, because he's going to come ready. Just know that.
Oh, goodness. We have Dr. Rosalind Artist next.
So she's a beautiful spirit, both inside and out. So she won't have to to worry about you. But all the guys, make sure, guys, he's going to try to outdress you, so y'all better be ready.
I could never do that. I could never do that. Thank you so much, Dr. Todd.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Peace out, everybody. Did you enjoy the episode? I hope you did. Be sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and connect with us on all digital platforms so you don't miss the next episode of the Culture Connect. We'll see you next time, everybody.
At the South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs, we believe the state's rich culture and history lies in the diversity of its people. Through research and relationships, cultural awareness, and increased opportunities, we're working to help all ethnic minorities achieve economic prosperity. Our network of community and state partners enables us to achieve more, which helps our communities to be stronger together. To learn how we serve you, visit cma.sc.gov.